President Robert Mugabe has finally resigned. Well, that is not the news. But remember, he was announcing the shock decision on Tuesday while Parliament Speaker Jacob Mudenda read a letter from Mugabe in which he said his resignation was voluntary and that he made the move to allow a smooth transfer of power.
I, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, in terms of Section 96, subsection 1 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, hereby formally tender my resignation as the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe with immediate effect.
Well, his surprise resignation halted an impeachment hearing that was in full swing. Lawmakers and Zimbabweans roared in jubilation.
Well, this is a very big moment. We are so excited that finally we are taking off as a country. We fought for a long time, 37 years of disappointment, 37 years of falsehoods, 37 years of dictatorship. All of a sudden, it has come in handy and we must have a fresh beginning, a new start.
The country feels very, very relieved indeed. I mean, here's a man who has done so much for this country. And we are hoping that really this development gives him an opportunity to rest.
Senior party members, ZANU-PF party members there talking about things there. Now in the studio with us is Global Affairs Analyst, Barrister Muyiwa Shobo. It's good to have you join us now.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And we have TVC News senior researcher Cyril Abaku joining as well. Cyril, good morning.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Aziza.
All right. Now, the jubilation across the country in Zimbabwe yesterday when the announcement was made, and across all the Zimbabwean embassies across the world, the only time the Zimbabweans celebrated like that or jubilated like that was in 1979-80 when the independence was granted. But this time around, let me ask you, Barrister Muyiwa, why do you think that Mugabe decided to resign eventually?
Well, there's something to living the stage while the ovation is loudest. What that does is it preserves the legacy. Okay, it elevates one to that position of reverence. Having failed to do that, legacy is destroyed. And so there's no value seen in the continuation of his presidency. Okay, and that is why people are on the street jubilating. And it's a combination of a lot of things, including the economic chaos that they've been experiencing for years, the oppression of opposition. And so even though, like the party chief said, Mugabe had that status as that you can compare to that of probably Mandela, or Jomo Kenyatta. If he had left when the ovation was loudest, that would have been the case.
Would have seen another Mandela.
Yeah, but he stayed he stayed too late, and so people were tired, and they see the opposition being oppressed. They couldn't move on. The economic was in chaos and shambles. So yes, they have the right to jubilate.
All right.
I jubilate with them as well.
Okay, Cyril, let me come to you. Many worried. Well, let me just say some, but of course, many are talking about it already. You heard the lawmaker saying that it's going to be a fresh beginning, a new start for Kenyans. But then...
for Zimbabweans?
Rather, Zimbabweans. The elections everywhere now.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah, so talking about this now, the lawmaker said that, but then will it really be a fresh start for Zimbabwe, knowing that Emerson Mnangagwa, the sacked vice president, is been tipped now to take over for now? It was the right-hand man of the president before things went sour.
It's exactly what I have thought about since when Robert Mugabe resigned. Again, we have to be careful here because the process leading to his resignation was not a popular uprising, even if it has that image. Well, number two, it's not organic. Clearly, this has been the military calling the shots. The military moving in the tanks, mobilizing people, mobilizing even the ZANU-PF, and the military is clearly the hand of ESO and the president of Jacob. In the case of Mnangagwa, calling the shots. So we have to be a bit careful here. Tyranny, the tyrant has been done away with, but the system, the value system and the power structure that brought in the tyrant is still very much in place. So I think that going forward, they will need to restructure the army, they will need to restructure the ZANU-PF, they need to restructure even the powers that Mugabe had amassed into himself as president. Because without those, nothing fundamental has really changed. Mnangagwa, up until yesterday, up until a few weeks ago, was vice president, was more or less Zimbabwe's successor in waiting, and he was basically also a comrade. He was also in the liberation. Yes, he was also in the liberation struggle. The military feels that they have entitlement. It was because when Mugabe fired Joyce Mujuru, his former vice president, he brought him Mnangagwa because he was a comrade. They kept quiet. Now he has fired a comrade and he's bringing in an unknown entity. Yes, he's bringing in an unknown person. So the military says no. We have to protect the liberation struggle. We have to protect power. We have to protect a lot of things. So what is being protected in Zimbabwe is not even democracy per se. What they're protecting is not even the office of what they are protecting their hold on power.
The legacy.
And yes.
Of the war veteran.
Yes. Now you find that when the military moved in with the tanks, and again you can see that they were not really particular. Mugabe was in power. They went in. They said they put him under house arrest. But there was a lot of respect. They brought in a Catholic bishop. They brought in the South African Minister of Defense. They said that they were negotiating. The following morning that they said the day after the supposed coup took place, the following morning they allowed Mugabe to attend a state function in Harare there. So you can see, they're all saying let him go and rest. Okay. They are not even after dealing with him. They say,
all right.
So
let's see another side of things, Barrister Muyiwa. In legal terms, forget about the politics now. Would you say ZANU-PF has violated the Constitution? Because originally, at the time of the resignation of Mugabe, there is a vice president, the second vice president, Pelekezela Mpoko, who was there. And he was not pronounced to take over because by hierarchy, he is supposed to be in charge, not bring him Mnangagwa back.
Well, I understand if you go and look at the legal structure, but you have to move out of the legal structure because nothing that happened in the past few days or few weeks was legal. I mean, this was a coup by any term. We are dressing it up. The military came in, they forced the leader out of power. They're bringing back the crocodile, like you said. But you have to know, like my friend here said, yes, fine. You look at the structure hasn't changed, but I want to believe that that country has a new opportunity to move forward. Even with the former vice president coming in now as the president, why? There's going to be an election in 2018. Let's wait and see and I believe that he himself, if he didn't want to end up like Mugabe, will have learned a lesson. I mean, that country needs to move forward. That country used to be what they call the jewel of Africa. It has everything. Now everything is in shambles. So even him coming in, they had a reason. It wasn't, I don't think it was because it was removed or because the structure belonged to the military. I think genuinely some people actually felt the country must move on, especially when Mugabe moved out and wanted to make his wife his successor and so on and so forth. So that is what I'm seeing. I think it's a new day, it's a new opportunity. If the vice president coming in, Emerson Mnangagwa, hasn't learned a lesson, then that would be sad. He's 75 years old. He's not a kid. So let's wait to 27. Let's see in 2018 whether he will relinquish power if he didn't win the election.
And on the flip side, looking at it, it was part of the movement since the 1970s. They struggled together, only that it didn't get to power until 2014. Yeah. Don't you think he could be saying that, okay, this is my time? Because he was the ZANU-PF anointed candidate to succeed former President Mugabe in the first place before all the problems started for him. Yeah. So don't you think, as an African, he could say, okay, this is my time right now, because he's quite popular now, and that is why he's going to be leader until the election next year. And many are saying, of course, he could win. And then, if he wins, that country has ingredients for somehow for the candidates or the figures in power to perpetuate themselves in power, in top position for so long. So should it be about conducting the election now, or putting electoral reforms in place, putting democratic reforms in place, making opposition parties viable first off before moving ahead? Because you have a military head that is quite powerful and now knows that he could unseat anyone in power at any time.
Yeah, but if you're going to say, well, let's allow Mnangagwa to put in all those things, then he can use that as an excuse to push himself forward. So, well, we have all this reform that I have to do, so let's cancel the election in 2018. Now, I'm just assuming that before 2018, he'll have tried to stabilize the country, one, economically. I mean, allow opposition parties to come in. ZANU-PF is Zimbabwe. It's not ZANU-PF. That's just the only party. And then the military. They have worked to have the stronghold in the military. The military is fully in control in that country. And Mnangagwa, is part of that structure. But we are saying, and the whole world is saying, well, look, the first step was to get rid of Mugabe. We've done that, by whatever means, legal or illegal. Thank goodness. Now let's move forward. Now, it will not have been possible to bring in a new person at this time because there's just nobody around there that can consolidate power as this man. So I think it's a wise choice for now. It's not that we support it because it's illegal, but because that country needs a chance to move forward. So let's see what happens. It's just 1 year. And he must know that the world is watching him carefully. They know he's very strong. They know he has a strong support around him. And so they're going to hold him accountable. The whole world is going to hold him accountable. And I think he knows that.
All right, Cyril, one of the charges against Mugabe that led to the impeachment or activation of the impeachment process was him allowing his wife to usurp constitutional power as it is. Would you say that Grace Mugabe, quote unquote, is solely responsible for this movement?
Well, like a friend of mine put it 2 weeks ago, he said that what happened in the past few days could well have been the rise of Mugabe's grace or Mugabe's fall from grace. So we've seen that. So we've seen that the latter was what really happened.
Quite poetic.
You know, she secured a PhD in just 2 months in her build up to whatever she wanted. She was aspiring to be to succeed her husband, and then she was also being covered by diplomatic immunity when she went to South Africa, Malaysia, people, and so on. But you see, when you look at what all of those, in the eyes of the military, it was still Father Mugabe. It was tolerable. When he moved again, you know, in the build-up, in the years leading up to independence, there were the ZAPU, there was the ZANU. ZAPU was with Joshua Nkomo. In the ZANU itself, Robert Mugabe personally recruited Emerson Mnangagwa as an aide, and recruited and trained him in the guerrilla warfare and took him as one of his aides. Now, the issue is that if Mnangagwa had been one of the had just been in the rank and file, perhaps in the middle cadre of the military, he wouldn't have been able to have such control over the soldiers. But you see, he has been their leader. While Mugabe has been a political face, he has been he has been the trusted go-to person in the military. And that is why you see, next year, it will be a fait accompli because he's going to win. If you feel that at 93, a man may not be as strong as he could have been in his 40s, the Zimbabwean opposition is weaker, is much weaker than even an 100-year-old person. You could look at Morgan Changirai. I mean, you could look at
the people don't trust him.
Yes, what I see happening is that with Mnangagwa coming back and with the ZANU-PF still paying tribute to Mugabe, but also calling for national healing, what they're going to do is to say, okay, let us have some sort of government of national unity. Because as a matter of fact, whether they call it by that name or not, Mnangagwa's return, like as rightly pointed out, is transitional. So in a transitional phase like they did in Liberia and many other countries like that, you normally have to bring in all the sides as many sides as possible, to form a government of national unity. Particularly the women in ZANU-PF, who claim that Grace Mugabe's first ladyship was also a very bad day for them. Kicking out leaders like Joyce Mujuru and most of them,
Former vice
the camaraderie that had been built.
In fact, it was divided, it was factionalized.
Yes, it was. And then again, you see, when Mugabe's wife went ahead and was forming the G20 unit and so on, the Impopo woman that was the other VP in waiting was actually a Grace Mugabe ally that was simply going to pave the way for her to rise. But it is important that Mnangagwa come. I think they need some measure of healing and some measure of cohesion, but the people must find an opportunity to own this process. 2 days ago, at the University of Zimbabwe, the students protested and said their vice chancellor must go, and they refused to write examinations. Such people-led outpourings and expressions is what will really change Zimbabwe. To be looking out lookalikes of popular uprisings as handlers from the military will only perpetuate. You know, like I said, and David Cotter tweeted, he said, look, the tyrant has been taken out, but tyranny must also be taken away. How do they do that?
Okay.
It's a big question.
Yes, let me come in here from just building on what you just said, the role of rights activists now in that country, because there is need for, many have said it, and he's just said it as well, there is need for the people to own this movement at this, so they can own the change, or else it's the same set of people that will still be ruling, just be an old wine in a new bottle. Do you think so, too?
I understand, but which movement are we talking about? You have a structure in place that's so strong, and the change that we are witnessing.
But power belongs to the people.
I understand
it's
that.
Supposed to be anyway.
Ideally.
It's supposed to be.
But the change that is coming out now is actually from within that structure, not from the outside.
Internal problem.
I mean, it's like a palace coup that happens now. And I'm saying, yes, fine, but he's right that the people must own that. But that depends on the person coming in now. That structure is so strong that it will kind of crush anything. So it's not, you know, the rights activists can come in. They've been coming in for how many years? For 37 years. Did they change anything? No, there's been uprising in Zimbabwe before. But that structure is so strong that it cannot be moved from the outside.
They were silenced many times. And
yes,
most of the time,
exactly.
Nagangwa was even used by President
Exactly.
Mugabe to silence most
so
of the critics.
Nagangwa is part of that structure. And the world is just hoping that since that change came from within, maybe there's a change of mind now. The rights activists will be allowed, their voice to be heard, opposition will be allowed to fester, and a reform will start. And because I don't see how it will happen without that structure, you know, pushing itself towards that. If we think that the rights of the students can come in and do anything, it's happened before. Nagangwa was the head of that operation. I don't think Nagangwa himself was actually really ambitious about power. He respects so much Mugabe. It's like Mugabe was him like a god. But for what happened with Grace Mugabe, Nagangwa will still be where he is. I mean, he's still doing what he's doing. So apart from preserving the legacy of Mugabe, he now has a responsibility to say, well, we have to correct things. And that's why I say it's crucial. The world is watching him. And if he doesn't want to go down like this, and further, because of this palace coup, yes, the rights activists are now more, I mean, they're emboldened. They can come out and start. And he will have to deal with that because they will come out. The opposition will come out, and they're already coming out. So let's just see how if he's sworn in, let's listen to his speech. Let's say whether he's going to put reforms in place and so on and stuff like that.
But if we have to narrow it down to the specifics now, what areas of reform should Mnangagwa carry out that will make the Zimbabweans happier and even give him a safe landing with the opposition, with the West, with everyone who has been anti-Mugabe all the while?
You know, political reforms, like he said, I think you have to look at this constitution, how Mugabe had reformatted the constitution to give himself this huge power and authority. And you have to look at that. I believe he will have to bring in all sectors of that country, the labor unions, the students, the opposition, and probably a government of national unity first, and start to look at things from that. So then political reforms must be first. But foremost in his mind must be the economic reforms, because people are suffering now. I mean, if you look at the Zimbabwe dollar, or whatever it is that
exactly.
the rate of inflation was in the millions. So, I mean, they must put things in place. He has to start by putting things in place to start with the economic reform, the political reform that will stabilize the country and give the world that kind of confidence that even though the change is coming from inside the structure, but people will have something else to look forward to positively.
All right, Cyril, aside political reforms, let's talk about one you just talked about, that's economic reforms, and that is what is expected that country needs as well, very urgently. But then how trusted or how receptive do you think the West would be to Nagangwa coming up, knowing that, of course, he was a close ally of former president?
No, I think every new leader has a new day open to him, and he will have to explore and exploit the diplomatic opportunities that will be open to him. You remember that in the past few days, both the US, the UK, and so on have been, in fact, the UK even went as far as saying that they are going to assist in this whole process. First of all, it has to be local, it has to be regional, and then the global aspect will also come in. I think the South African Development Coalition, also the community, rather, the SADC, yes, will also have to play a very supporting role, because you know that their currency had been so, there's virtually nothing left of it, okay? So they need to begin to rebuild. If they're going to redenominate it and so on. In the coming days, Mnangagwa has to lay out a broad economic plan, okay, which will require the buy-in, both local businessmen, and then the regional people also have to come in to assist. Mozambique, South Africa, Zambia, and so on. Yes, SADC. Botswana was saying that one person shouldn't be in power for so long. You know, Botswana is quite a sane country, so it's not just about talking the talk. They also have to assist in walking the walk. With support from such a regional bloc, for instance, international donors and aid agencies can also now see a proper window through which to step in. This economic development takes layers. Okay, it takes it won't happen overnight, but it's going to take it's going to take processes. Zimbabwe has the rare blessing of of boasting some of Africa's richest men again. You know, talking people like Strap Masiyiwa and so on. Yes, they too will need to, yes, their companies will also need to be given greater leverage to be able to generate jobs, to be able to when someone has been born in 1980. And up until yesterday, his country has had only one president. Perhaps it was only in Cuba we had that when Fidel Castro stayed for about 50 years. So, but I think that they need to open up. They themselves, a man who wears a shoe knows where it pinches him, where it really pinches the most. So they will need to sit down. Mnangagwa has his work cut out for him, but he has to be deliberate. He has to be systematic. He has to be particular about where, what he wants to do, and where he needs to, and where he's going. I, for one, I will think that since, in the manner of speaking, since next year's elections are more or less a fait accompli. Look, I know what I'm saying. There is no position in Zimbabwe anymore. For them to even be active, they might need to be part of the transitional government to be able to have access to some funds. They are as good as that. So
the MDC is not as strong as it
it's not as strong as it used to be.
Even though we saw Morgan Changarai trying to capitalize or take advantage of the.
And how many people came with him?
All right. We're trying to manage time. We just have a few minutes, but the white farmers is very phenomenal. In fact, because of them, Zimbabwe was seen as the
country.
Yeah, exactly.
Your turn.
For their activity at the time, Zimbabwe was seen as the bread basket of Africa. Now that this has happened, we saw so many white farmers jubilating yesterday from the report we got. They were so happy. Now, Mnangagwa coming in, he was also part of that process that led to all of those policies in the first place. But
pushing them out.
I know there's a goodwill he has enjoyed from the people. Now he might like to reciprocate, as the case may be, and also trying to see how he can, put a new face to things. Are we going to see any maybe revocation or maybe reversal of some of the policies?
Well,
against white farmers?
Perhaps not revocation or reversal, because I want to believe, and I suspect that white farmers are actually active behind the curtain here. But Mnangagwa must change that anti-West posture of Mugabe. Everything. He's as Maoist as Mugabe. They are from that Maoist movement. So, but he has to change that, because what actually started downfall of Mugabe was that single policy. And the West was looking at it, this was unfair. He could have done it any which way. But that was what endeared him, ironically, to Zimbabweans, because he was able to grab this land and redistribute.
But they were not able to utilize the land.
They were not able to use it because but most of this one didn't have the skill to actually do that. That's not a slight on their part, but that's not what they're used to. So I think Mnangagwa now must come in with some sort of it's a sort of compromise somewhere to allow the white farmers in and start producing like they used to.
Okay, okay, we have to thank you. I wanted to give you a final shot, but we are already out of time. Thank you very much, Barrister Muyi Washoboy, a global affairs analyst. Thank you for coming to the studio. And
Thank
of
you,
course,
it's my pleasure.
Cyril Abako, our senior researcher here in TVC News. Thank you, as always, for your analysis.
Thank you.